Indeed. Yesterday, the Academy announced the nominations, and much to my delight and surprise, our recording, Fandango at the Wall, live in New York, was nominated for Best Latin Jazz Album, which is, it's a very beautiful project to me, Fandango at the Wall, because it involved going down to Mexico and spending time in Veracruz and Tijuana, and then making music at the wall across the mesh.
Hello and welcome to the Foxworth Theory. I'm your host, Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you for joining us. The Foxworth Theory covers the worlds of entertainment, fashion, business, and the arts. We speak with leaders, movers, and shakers of their field on location, and we allow them to tell their stories here. This week, our guest is multi-Grammy Award-winning jazz musician, pianist, and composer, Arturo O'Farrill. He is also an educator who founded the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to the performance, education, and preservation of Afro Latin jazz music. This segment of the Foxworth Theory is sponsored by 12-3 Productions. The film, False Pretenses, will be available on Thanksgiving Day. Go to www.falsepretensesthemovie.com for more information. Arturo, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and I'm going to pronounce your name the Latino way. Eugenia.
Yes.
Eugenia.
Okay, I'll allow you to do that only once.
Okay, that's it. I'm
Is
done.
that good?
I used up my Latinx
it.
card. No, but it's such a beautiful name. Eugenia or Eugenia is such a beautiful name.
No, thank you. Like in Mexico, they say Mario Eugenia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mario Eugenia.
Yeah.
In Mexico, they say Arturo.
Arturo.
No, you have to roll your R's.
Arturo. Arturo.
It's funny. I tried to get my sons as I was raising them to learn to roll their R's. And it was the funniest thing. It just devolved into a laugh fest because they just couldn't get that.
Right.
It's not easy to roll your R's.
Roll.
Yeah.
Arturo.
That's it.
I'm getting there. Well, first, let me congratulate you on your Grammy nomination for Best Latin Jazz Recording.
Indeed. Yesterday, the Academy announced the nominations, and much to my delight and surprise, our recording, Fandango at the Wall, live in New York, was nominated for Best Latin Jazz Album, which is, it's a very beautiful project to me, Fandango at the Wall, because it involved going down to Mexico and spending time in Veracruz and Tijuana, and then making music at the wall across the mesh. We had musicians.
Wow.
We had musicians on the U.S. side and musicians on the Mexican side, and they're in the presence of border guards, patrol dogs, machine guns, and chicken wire. We played, we jammed, we partied across the mesh, which is amazing. We also brought incredible artists like Regina Carter, Antonio Sanchez, the Villalobos brothers. I mean, it was such a beautiful project that we made two recordings, the original one, Fandango at the Wall, a book called Fandango at the Wall, and an HBO Max documentary called Fandango at the Wall. And it's about community. It's about saying community is more important than division. The walls cannot separate us. The walls are man-made. They're also metaphysical.
Yes.
It's about separation in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we are one people, and it's time that people understood that.
Now that is beautiful. I mean, it's about time people understood. But the beauty is that you played on both sides of the wall together.
That's right. And it's funny because music travels right through the wall and above the wall. And it's a perfect metaphor for culture.
Yes.
Because culture doesn't know country. Culture doesn't know geographic, ethnicity, racial makeup. Culture is something we all share.
Yes.
We all make music. We all live. We all marry. We all divorce. We all die. We all have kids. We all have da-da-da-da-da-da. We eat. All these things are part of our cultures as human beings, and we all do them. And so to look at it peoples and say, oh, you're different or less than is really so anti-human. And that is exactly what politicians have done with the wall and with Latin America. You know.
But you've made it beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you, Eugenia.
And you've already won 5 Grammys and 2 Latin Grammys. We always hear artists say, it's an honor just to be nominated. But how much would a 6th Grammy award for Best Jazz Recording mean to you?
That's a really good question. I have an ulterior motive. I always look at a Grammy as a wonderful honor from my peers, but it's also an opportunity to to convince a funder to give us money to buy 10 more saxophones to give to young people in schools in Bronx or in Queens or in Brooklyn. It's everything the Grammy is an incredible honor. Being nominated is an incredible honor. But the ability to go to a funder, because I have a nonprofit and we do a lot of education. We go into the schools, we have a pre-professional training program, we go into retirements, community centers, we work with the incarcerated population. And every time you get that little statue, which means a lot to me, I don't downgrade it at all, it just buys credibility to some degree with funders that are able to help us to do the nonprofit work that we do. So it's a huge honor. It really is.
Oh, it really is, and you're making use of it. It's not hidden in a closet, garage, or as a door stopper.
For the first Grammy I got, I couldn't believe I got it, and I didn't even bother, like, in any way, shape, or form. I didn't go. And I heard my wife cry out from the kitchen, "You won! You won!" And then for the first couple of weeks that I had it, I put it inside the fridge because that's where everybody would look.
Oh, how funny is that? I love it. That's great.
Well, you got to admit, that's the one place everybody goes.
That's true. That is so true. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the musical term, Afro Latin Jazz, how do you define it? Our audience would like to know, what are its roots?
Oh my God. There's a book called A Secular Devotion, which makes a very convincing argument that all of the music we love, salsa, jazz, hip hop, Afro-Cuban, all the music we love is born in Africa. For me, that's sacred. To bring that messaging back, to say this is Afro-Latin jazz are just words, but they point in the direction of the source code for all that we love. All this music that has become a part of our lives is really found in a lot of the rhythms, and especially in a lot of the Yoruban and religious rhythms of Africa. So in a way, I bristle when I hear somebody say jazz was invented in the year 1913 in Kansas City or something like that, or when everybody. No, it's an inheritance of a cataclysm, a beautiful cataclysm in which noble and proud people were enslaved and brought and brutalized to this country, and instead of giving us hatred, they gave us love, and that is so incredibly important to me. That should be the result. Imagine that. Imagine that should be the result of hatred and oppression. And that, to me, that's why it's just words. And after all, we're just making music.
Right.
But every chance I get, and Randy Weston, Randy Weston, blessed be his name, taught me that the music I play is African. And I'll never, never forget that. Thank you, Baba.
Well, I've heard you play. And it's definitely African. It's a little skeleton in that closet. Although his mother, wait a minute, your father is Irish?
He was Irish, German, Cuban.
Right, and your mother is Mexican.
Mexican.
Yeah.
Born in Detroit, but Mexican.
Right, and she was a singer, but we'll get into that later. So you really are a potpourri of love.
Oh, forget it. My wife is African-American, Jewish. I'm Irish, German, Cuban, Mexican. Our kids, if you look at them, you can't hate.
No.
If you look at their faces, you go, what are you?
Uh-huh.
You know? And so to me, yeah, I mean, let's face it,
Right,
all our bloodlines are mixed.
right.
Maybe indigenous people aren't mixed. I don't know, but at this point, in this point in history, it is important to embrace people, to embrace humanity, to not look at where you're from or
Right.
what you believe or who you know, all that stuff is really crazy.
Exactly.
You know,
So you were born in Mexico and grew up in New York City,
I did.
the son of the great jazz trumpeter Chico O'Farrill and mother Lupe Valero, a renowned singer. Was it inevitable that your career path would imitate your parents as a musician? Was that your expectation?
You know what? I like to say that I became a musician despite my parents.
Oh, okay.
And there's a reason I say that. You know, it's funny that when I first was a kid, I used to pretend. Before I had music lessons, I'd go back in the studio in the back of the house and just pretend I was a composer, and I would just make up stuff at the piano, and I'd even make up like fake crowd noises. I'd do a performance and I'd go ah, you know. So I always knew I was a musician, but I was terrified of being compared to my father. I was terrified of being thrown in either favorably or unfavorably with him. And so I played right away from the very beginning of my career. I played different music. I played free jazz and funk and hip hop and rap and straight ahead jazz. And because my father's known as an Afro-Cuban jazz musician.
Right.
And then one day something really beautiful happened. We performed at Alice Tully Hall for Wynton Marsalis. And when I got home, there was a message on my machine. Somebody with a fake British accent said, "Arturo O'Farrill. Let it be known that you don't have a 40th of your father's talent. In fact, I foresee you picking through garbage." And I looked at the phone and I went, oh my God, the thing I feared most in my life just happened to me. And not only am I not dead, but I've been set free. From that moment on, I became a composer, and I started leading the band and taking advantage of all the beautiful things that my father had given me, all the beautiful legacy that my mother and father had shown me. Man, my mother and father had parties in their house. Dizzy Gillespie would be there, John Hendricks, Pearl Bailey, Tito Puente, Machito. I mean, I grew up,
wow.
and you know how kids reject everything that their parents give them,
Right.
which, by the way, is really smart. But having had that moment where I had to come to terms with the fact that no, I'm not my father, nor am I my mother. I'm part of that legacy. But every human being walks the path alone.
That's true.
And so it was a beautiful moment. And from that point on, I started composing and just I stepped into my role.
Love it. love it. And on that note, we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
We'll be back in just a moment.
You hear that? It's the good stuff, huh, Keith?
We gonna get to the bottom of this shit tonight.
Welcome back. We are here with Grammy Award-winning jazz musician, pianist, composer, and educator Arturo O'Farrill. Playing the piano at a very young age was just the beginning of your career path, which progressed at age 19 with the Carla Bley Band. Before performing solo with a wide variety of artists, including Dizzy Gillespie, Wynton Marsalis, and Harry Belafonte, to name a few. In fact, you were Mr. Belafonte's music director. How did each of them influence and impact your own musicality?
Wow. Carla Bley is an NEA jazz master, but I think she belongs among the pantheon of the greats. Sometimes it's unfair. Women have been left off the roster of pantheon of jazz greats. As far as I'm concerned, it should be Duke Ellington, Melba Liston, Carla Bley. We can go on about this, but Carla taught me something that my father understood, which is integrity. If you're curious about something, do it, write it, play it, see what happens. it might fall flat on his face, but just at least take that chance. And she did. But the other thing she showed me was humor. She had a great deal of humor in her music, which I also give to Dizzy Gillespie. If you know Dizzy's music at all, you know he's having a great old time. He wasn't uptight. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was laughing and having fun, and music for him was a pure joy. I mean, for all of these folks, I think that I learned so much. And with Harry, Harry's a remarkable hero. Harry's a remarkable hero, not only for his standing arm in arm with Martin Luther King and marching and civil rights. He's a hero because he also was like the best examples of those of us who see the connections. Calypso, jazz, salsa, it all, he didn't make these distinctions. He stood in fact, I think genius is the ability to see the many different worlds and connect them. And not be afraid of them. A lot of times people go, I'm a jazz musician. Oh, I'm a salsa musician. That guy doesn't know how to play this, or their girl doesn't know how to play that. And it's just nonsense, man. The true definition of a great genius like Prince.
Right.
James Brown, new prog rock, all of it connecting. He saw this and connected it with that and said, oh, this is not different. This is all part of the same continuum called music, and music is an eternal, infinite continuum from which all of us can partake. You don't have to sequester yourself. You don't have to put yourself in a little box and go, hey, this is where I am. I know the little voice. You didn't expect the little voice, did you?
No, I did not.
I make all kinds of weird voices and
Well,
sounds.
your kids must adore you.
They're pretty fun. They think I'm funny. I cracked them up a lot growing up.
Well, in that, I'm back to seriousness with a big voice.
Yes.
You established a nonprofit organization, Afro Latin Jazz Alliance, in 2007, which provides, among other things, instruments and musical lessons for New York City public school students. Why is this initiative so important?
I believe that music and education are inescapably intertwined. If you're playing on stage, someone's checking you out. If you're teaching, someone's listening to your music. And for me, the idea of creating the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance came from leaving Jazz Lincoln Center and seeing how little Afro Latin culture was dealt with. And I love Jazz Lincoln, I love Wynton, but Afro Latin culture was basically off the table. And so I said, no, that's not right. This is a diaspora. This diaspora hit New Orleans and Cuba. It hit Kansas City and Colombia. This diaspora hit all over the Americas. And so it's necessary to understand that, and from an intellectual and a spiritual viewpoint, you need to understand how that affected the musics of the Americas. And so in a way, the first thing I did was imagine all the kids out in the projects in the outer boroughs who didn't have the money to find their way to understand how to get into the special pre-professional programs at Manhattan School of Music or Juilliard. And I said, well, I got to reach them. I got to reach these kids. And so we went into the toughest. This is a true story. I left Jazz Lincoln Center and borrowed $40,000 from my local barkeep to put on a concert season. I walked into South Shore High School and I asked the principal, do you have any classrooms that we can teach music in? And we found a couple of classrooms. I put on a concert season, and every year the thing grew, And last year, we had 47 teaching artists in 21 New York City school districts. We have a pre-professional training program, a world-class recording, touring, performing ensemble. We are teaching music to kids by giving them instruments that they take home to play on. We're going into community centers. We're working with the incarcerated population. We are putting into practice the belief that music is service. And that is really important to me. And so the Alliance is almost, in some ways, my greatest, the thing that I love most that I do. And in a very scary way, we were recognized for the work that we do when we were invited to participate in a proposal. A contractor by the name of Mega proposed a 16-story affordable housing building in Spanish Harlem. And they invited us, come on, you be the cultural component. And lo and behold, they were rewarded this contract. And so we're going to be building on 119th Street, between 119th and 118th on 3rd Avenue, the Afro Latin Music Alliance Performing and Community Arts Center.
How fabulous.
Wait a second, it's scary. It's so scary.
No. The Bloods are there. Don't worry. They still live with their
I
parents.
just love the.
Don't worry about it.
I love my people. I love our people.
Yes.
And I really believe that music is service.
It is the service.
That to be able to take instruments into the community and find the ingenious ways that people live in those communities, that's magic and that's special, and that's why the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance is truly an amazing thing. And I don't want to take the credit for it. I had a lot of beautiful women, men, musicians, heroes, my wife, and a staff that you wouldn't believe that just has brought this moment to come.
And that is just wonderful. We need music. They've taken it out of schools. So you've expanded your educational acumen. On a college level, as Professor of Global Jazz Studies and Assistant Dean for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at UCLA. What type of music courses does the university offer? And what do you teach as a professor to enable your students to embrace the Afro Latin jazz experience?
That's a beautiful question. Yes, I am a professor of global jazz studies and associate dean for equity, diversity, and inclusion, which are more than just buzzwords, by the way.
Yeah.
They're very popular words now.
I know.
But they really mean something. And in my
Yeah.
work, I love to advocate for people who feel othered. I love to advocate for people who feel marginalized, whether because of gender, sexual preference, race, ethnicity, any number of things. They are there. They're in our colleges and universities, and they're feeling uncomfortable, and they're scared, and they don't know who to turn to, and someone has to advocate for them. And someone who has to advocate for them who comes from their world, because I am from New York. I've had New York City policemen punch me in the face and point weapons at me and rifle through my pockets. I know what it's like to be othered. I know what it's like to be marginalized, and so it's one of those things that I'm so blessed to be able to do that equity work. But also, as a professor of global jazz studies, I have all the stuff down about chords and chromaticism. I can talk about all the technical stuff. But what I really teach them to do is question everything I teach. I look at them and I go, listen, this is not information that I can spoon feed you. It means nothing to you if I just give you the answers. I'd rather raise the questions inside your soul. So as I'm giving you information, I'm trying to get you to think for yourself, because a real educator does not supply answers. A real educator creates hunger in a student. And so I teach multicultural perspectives in jazz, and I invite great guests from all over the world to come to UCLA to interact with our students, South Asian, Asian, male, female. I mean, we bring in Vijay Iyer, Regina Carter. We bring in people from all over the world, MacArthur winners, Pulitzer winners, and they come to our class and say, jazz isn't black and white. It's green, it's red, it's fluid, it's all kinds of things. It's global. It is a true statement of equality and equity. Jazz is the most eloquent statement of welcome. I don't care who you are or where you're from. You're welcome in my soul, in my heart, in my home, and in my music. And sometimes the students have never heard anybody say anything like that. Right. And they look at me and they go,
but it is, and that's why our musicians went to Japan, and that's why the Japanese really helped a lot of our very famous,
of course,
jazz musicians. People were aware of that. I mean, that's where most of our guys went, and women.
A lot of music, a lot of jazz.
A lot of jazz. Now, this concludes part one of our conversation with multi-Grammy Award-winning Arturo O'Farrill, founder of the Afro Latin Jazz Alliance. Tune in later this week for part two of our interview with Arturo, who will tell us about an exciting project that he's involved in that breaks ground in 2023. This is the Foxworth Theory. I am Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you for watching.
You hear that? It's the good stuff, huh, Keith?
gonna get to the bottom of this shit tonight.
Hi, this is Eugenia Foxworth. Thank you so much for tuning into the Foxworth Theory. We are celebrating going into our 3rd season. Can you believe that? We are opening our doors to sponsorships for the Foxworth Theory. For more information, go to thefoxworththeory.com or email us at pr@thefoxworththeory.com. Thank you.